Fox News Alert Los Angeles hit with new wind warnings, gusts up to 70 miles per hour that could spark explosive fire growth. As the area continues to battle three major wildfires that have been raging across Southern California. So far, 24 people are dead and countless structures have been burned down. The big fear right now is that the return of the fierce winds will make matters even worse for firefighters who are trying to put out those flames, with forecasters posting a particularly dangerous situation red flag warning through Wednesday. And this comes as city and state leaders face more scrutiny for how they are handling the crisis. California Governor Gavin Newsom, he is getting accused of playing semantics after he dodged blame for an LA County-run reservoir was drained at the time of the fires.
Reservoirs are completely full. The state reservoirs here in Southern California. That mis and disinformation, I don't think advantages or aids any of us.
You know, though, from reporting here locally that one reservoir that serves the Palisades was not full.
It was not a state system reservoir, which the president-elect was referring to as it relates to the Delta and somehow connecting the Delta smelt to this fire, which is inexcusable because it's inaccurate, also incomprehensible to anyone that understands water policy in the state.
Newsom also spending a lot of time attacking Donald Trump while inviting the president-elect to tour the devastation.
I've been pretty expressive about that in the context of someone threatening our first responders in terms of supporting the immediacy of their needs.
That's what you take it as, that President-elect Trump is threatening the first responders here.
Well, I mean, it's what he said. He said, I'm not going to support the firefighting efforts. I'm not going to support the state of California as it relates to its emergency management. He made this pretty clear during the election, unless they do my bidding.
And while Governor Newsom accuses the president-elect of politicizing the wildfires, he's facing the same criticism himself after appearing on the left-wing Pod Save America podcast to say this.
That's your favorite?
I'm the governor of California. I want to know the answer. I've got that question. I can't tell you about how many people, what happened. My own team saying what happened. And I want to get the answers. And I'll be candid with you, I wasn't getting straight answers.
Yeah.
I watched the press conference. I met with some of those leaders. We had my team start talking to local leaders, saying what's going on.
So this continues, and we are hoping for the best. But, Judge, these winds, the forecast is really bad, and they're going to pick up overnight.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me say it's good to be back. I'm thrilled to be back with all of you. I missed you last week. Around the table, all of you. First of all, my thoughts and my condolences to the people in California. It's the first time I've spoken about this. They've suffered unimaginable loss, and our hearts go out to them. But, you know, I never realized that I lived in a third world country, that I lived in a country where this kind of thing would happen in the United States, and we wouldn't be able to at least fight back as well as we should have been able to fight back. And that's very, very disturbing. This was a predicted disaster, and there were a lot of problems that preceded this. This is about feckless leadership, and I've never been more convinced that Gavin Newsom is nothing more than an empty suit. Just hearing what he said a few seconds ago, you know, that the empty reservoir, well, that wasn't a part of the state system. He certainly is not someone who can accept responsibility. He's looking to place blame on everybody else. He's looking to criticize Donald Trump. You want Donald Trump there? Well, you know, maybe Joe Biden and Kamala should be there, seeing that he's the president and she's the vice president. And the forestry management, I'm sure it's been said here before, has been mismanaged for years in California. I've spoken to many, many people, friends, relatives in California. They're devastated. They can't believe that this would happen. And in the end, what you have is Donald Trump in 2019 trying to get water from Northern California to Southern California, and the environmentalists and people worried about the smelts and all that other stuff prevented that from happening. So right now, I think the most important thing that we can do is provide the mutual assistance, which, as I understand it, Dana, I'm reading that they're having trouble even coordinating with the people in California, and that, you know, this has to be incredibly disturbing to people who pay some of the highest taxes in the nation, to have empty fire hydrants, an empty reservoir, no water pressure. And, you know, it is just a disaster. And you know how to lose billions for the homeless. and all kinds of money for illegals, but you can't manage the forestry and you can't take something that's predictable. And the question now is whether Americans in other states should be paying the bill for their policy, which really ignored the fundamental prevention efforts.
Especially if those policies aren't going to change.
Right.
Right. Jessica, let's get your take today.
Well, echoing the judge's sentiments, not only happy to have you back here at work, but for everyone out in California, my sister, they left for a couple days. They're now back in their home and hopefully can stay there. I'm close to despondent over the tenor of the political discourse concerning something this egregious. I hate that it has turned to politics, that it has been politicized this way. I hate that Governor Newsom had to create a new landing page on his site to put out the real facts about what the budgets have looked like, doubling the size of the air fleet. Forest management budget increased 10 times. I understand it got a little wordy about the San Ynez Reservoir, but the truth is that reservoir was offline through February 2025, no matter what. This wasn't an unpreparedness thing. There was a tear in the cover that they had to repair. It's a normal maintenance thing. So yes, would it have been better if it had been filled? Sure, but that's not because of mismanagement. That's maintenance that has to happen.
But the maintenance didn't happen in time. I mean,
but it was always. But it's not behind schedule. Is the point? This isn't because they neglected it.
It's
there were
because
also
they
a number
didn't make time is of the essence in this contract.
Okay,
if they don't have that reservoir, that involved the Palisades.
I totally understand.
And so it's like saying we're not going to have cops where we know there's going to be a crime.
Well, you don't know that there's going to be a crime. This fire was predicted 5 days out, not months out when it went offline.
We've been hearing about fires in California for years.
In positions of power, like the Orange County Fire Chief, the LA County Fire Chief, the head of FEMA, even Elon Musk, who went to a briefing and heard from the fire command, who have all said that this wasn't about a lack of preparedness, that this was because it was unprecedented. If you have 100 miles per hour winds, so much so that the choppers can't fly for 27 hours, which was a crucial element of this, that it was too windy to be able to do it, then you can't stand there and blame them like this. I mean, these quotes are crazy, saying, firefighters have never seen these kinds of winds. The fires were, quote, unstoppable. Mother Nature owned us. And then you hear Speaker Johnson, who was just walking through the Capitol and it was being interviewed, talking about aid and disaster relief. And he said that he thinks it should be conditioned on California changing their ways. If Joe Biden, who, by the way, has signed every major disaster declaration right away, given everyone the capacity aid that they are asking for, that he even actually wanted to put more money into the FEMA budget, and the Republicans took it down several $billion. If he had said, you know what, Louisiana, I'm not so into your politics. You should do things differently. Or Georgia, or any other conservative state, or Florida. I mean, he has been so bipartisan in this. It is not the moment to say that this is going to be attached to something conditional about you doing this the way that I think you should do.
Okay, let me get to Jesse, because the condition might be, hey, you have to allow the Forest Service to do the work and tell the environmentalists to pound sand while we do this. They're not saying you're not going to be allowed to have trans policies unless you, we're not going to give you the money unless you do. It's not like condition for something that doesn't make sense. It's like if you're asking federal taxpayers to help continue, and all of us want to help. And we not only will we help federally through our taxpayer dollars, but we will help also through our donations. You would have to say, like, can we at least make sure that there's more than one road in and out so that people can get out if there's an emergency?
Yeah, and they were going to try to expand the road, but there was a very precious piece of lettuce that the environmentalists sued and then fined a utility for touching.
Is this about fake smelt gate again, too?
There's nothing fake about the smelt.
Not
I
according to
actually
Gavin.
brought the lawsuit in last week. Maybe you already forgot, Jessica. And are you going to come on TV and say that California was well prepared and couldn't have done anything better? And this fire, no one could have put it out? Are you really going to tell people watching right now in California, the Democrats, the liberals, all the Hollywood stars that are livid at Bass and Newsom, that everything was perfect and they got this thing right? Jessica, this is such a
Karen Bass will
disaster.
probably be recalled, but I am going to come on and read what the head of FEMA had to say, or the LA County Fire Chief.
Okay.
You know
Well,
better than them?
I know better than to listen to you talk about facts because I have them. And here is the budget, Jessica. California state budget, Department of Forestry Fire Protection. $3.3 billion last year. This year was $2.8. Look at the LA budget. Last year,
Is this the 17 million?
last year, $837 million, then $819. I'm not very good at math, but I know that's a cut.
No.
Let me tell you something else. In the 1700s, Jessica, California averaged millions and millions of lost acreage due to wildfires. Then the Americans came in, brought a little civilization, and by the end of the last century, they only lost 250,000 acres to wildfires per year. And then the environmentalists and the wackos took over. And they're back to losing millions of acres in California. These people have literally taken California back centuries, Jessica, with these stupid policies. And the thing about liberalism is that they say if you give the liberals all the power and all the money, they will create a utopia. They will create heaven on earth. Well, we've given the Democrats all the power in California. And look at it. It looks like hell. They think they can control the Earth's temperature. They can't even put out a fire in their own backyard. Look at these fact checks this guy's doing. Now, I don't care if he goes on a podcast, but look what he's saying. The fire started from a satanic ritual. They had to fact check that. Why is he wasting time doing this? This is craziness, Jessica. You can't defend this guy.
Let's see what Greg has to say. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, and you. I love your jacket.
Why, thank you. I know you're lying.
No, I like it.
When you say somebody is politicizing something, that is the new disinformation.
Yes.
It's to discount whatever you say. First of all, it's not like Trump is like the only voice. Everyone is pissed off. Democrats are pissed off. It's not just Trump. What does this feel like to you? To me, it feels like when they sent the migrants to New York City or Martha's Vineyard. This is the doorstop effect, but it's not about the citizens, it's about the leadership. Suddenly, you realize that the progressive politicians you voted for do not address the disasters. Instead, they enable it. This is what we learned with sanctuary cities. If you're chasing metrics based on virtue signaling, you end up taking your eye off the ball. That's why New York, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, and Los Angeles are all disaster zones in different ways. You could have had reservoirs filled. You could have had underground power lines. That was there for a while. Brush removal, more firemen. I would have loved to have more millions in the fire department. But no, you spent billions on homeless. You spent billions on illegals because that was the virtue signal. Newsom's argument that this is being politicized by Trump is a sham because Trump had said all these things before this happened. He is a builder. So was Rick Caruso, a builder. This is what they talked about. They didn't see Democrats. They saw incompetence. Why else would Trump point it out? He's not interested in helping Democrats. He just wants the thing fixed. That's how he is. Clear the brush, cut down the trees. A similar fire like this took place 8 years ago, and they learned nothing. They focused on the virtue signaling instead. Billions in aid for things that make you feel good but do nothing. That left California vulnerable. If there's one thing you got to teach kids before they turn into Democrats, it's a basic economic term called opportunity cost. If you shunt billions towards effort A, effort B doesn't get it, especially in a finite pie. You can't always rely on the rich to keep enlarging the pie. The real blind spot for Democrats with DEI, it's not that the fire chief isn't qualified. It's that the fire chief has to make that metric a priority, splitting your attention, taking your attention away from public safety to public virtue. The fire chief could actually hate DEI, but the demand is an institutional directive. The directive doesn't create profits in a company or results in a public company, which is fine if you're Coke or you're Pepsi. If you got billions of dollars, of course, DEI could be a little hobby. It's a PR hobby. You throw the money out there, you get good PR. Bud thought it was doing that. However, and I blame the companies, billion-dollar companies for this, you embrace DEI because you could afford to. They couldn't. A lot of companies, smaller companies and public entities, they don't sell Coke. They save lives. So It wasn't a hobby for them. It ended up being a death sentence.
And there's much more to come on it. So we will stay on top of it. And as I mentioned at the top, these winds are expected to pick up overnight.
But coming out of Gavin's mouth.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.